Welcome to Lead the Room podcast, where we help those with great ideas and brilliant minds to become amazing leaders and build teams full of purpose, connection, creativity, and courage, transforming people's experience of workplaces and leadership. In 2018, we decided that the leadership playbook we saw around us wasn't working for the needs of our teams and our organisations, or frankly for us. So we ripped it up, built a new one, and watched the incredible impact that came from leading in a completely counter-cultural way. This journey transformed our experience of work, team culture, delivery, and felt so good to us. And our approach has served us and our teams in the good times and in the tough times alike. So now we're here to share our stories, experiences with you so you can become the leader you want to be, build teams that deliver amazing things in amazing environments, and inspire those around you to do the same. You and your leadership are what our workplace and people desperately need. We'll be laughing, crying, and learning together. Let's get started. So I read a report recently, Bryony, that said that more than 40% of one-to-one meetings with staff are rescheduled on a weekly basis, 40%, and on average, almost 30% of one-to-ones are cancelled each week.
Really?
I think that is, I don't know, that kind of shocked me, but also didn't shock me. And yeah, we'll come on to that. But I think, sure, there are good reasons that you'd have to reschedule a meeting, a one-to-one. But it said also that for each of those, for 40% of those meetings that were cancelled, it takes on average 10 minutes to reschedule that one-to-one. So, what a waste of time. But also, there are good reasons that you would have to reschedule a meeting, a one-to-one, and 100% get that. But cannot think of many meetings that you would have to cancel it. And that feels really worrying to me as a leader. Like, why are such a high volume of meetings, of one-to-one meetings, being rescheduled? Like, how often are you rescheduling meetings, really jiggling around with meetings in your diary? Therefore, does it suggest it's the wrong time to begin with? But 30% each week are being cancelled? Like,
Yeah, that's
does
a
that
lot.
shock you?
Yeah, I think it does surprise me because for me, I love catching up with my staff. On the whole, like I'm in a great team now, so it's easy to love catching up with them.
Yeah.
But I really look forward to them. Like it's my chance to really connect with them, to hear how they're doing, to like really delve into like how can I help them? How's their growth going? Like what can I do to like help them, to listen to them share their wins and their things that they're proud of, to know more about their values, all of that kind of stuff. And when I think about the impact that it has on me when my one-to-ones with my boss get cancelled or rescheduled, you know what? Like I don't have a lot of time like that or support like that in my diary on like a weekly, monthly basis. And so like often I've been like saving up the things that I wanted to talk to my boss about, like I've got this problem, I've got that problem, I've got the other problem. I want to update you on this great thing I did. I need your advice on this training thing I might be thinking about, or this development opportunity. Like I've obviously, we know me, Lindsay, Lindsay. Of course I'm coming with a list, but I've been like saving them up. And then if it gets cancelled or rescheduled, it's almost like it throws my day.
Yeah.
And that sounds dramatic, but then it's like, gosh, now next time we're going to have to cover 10 things in the half hour rather than the 5 that are on the list, because I'll have other things. My time's going to get squeezed. Actually, there's some time sensitivity with some of the things on the list. So how am I going to get that advice that I really needed now? So it really does throw me.
Yeah, I completely agree. And even on that, just throwing you, like, I feel as well, like some of the things, like, I just lose momentum on because
Yeah.
you've got that momentum, you're going to speak about it in the one-to-one, you want to get perhaps authorization or whatever it is, that kind of, you need some kind of something from your leader. And then you're a bit like, it feels a bit like, yeah, when you just feel a bit deflated.
That's exactly the word I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, and I always think as well, in my experience and when I've seen of other people, it's always a very last minute cancellation.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely someone, depending on who your leader is, you kind of psych yourself up for these meetings, because if you have got a leader who's maybe you haven't quite got that connection with, and this is a big thing going
Mm.
to one with them, you might be asking for something, you're
Yes.
not going to share the response. I've built myself up. I'm feeling like, okay, I'm ready for this. Like, this is going to be a good meeting. I'm prepared. And
Yeah.
then suddenly you receive that calendar thing cancelled. No explanation, just
No,
cancelled.
no explanation. So often, like the least you owe people is an explanation, right?
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
completely agree. And that's, to me, as soon as that cancellation thing comes up on my screen, my mind goes straight to, they don't care, I'm not valued, I'm not important, I'm not a priority in this team.
Yeah, and I think it's so easy as leaders, isn't it, to fall into the trap of deprioritizing them, because especially if they're every week, you're like, well, this one can slide.
Yeah,
And then all of a sudden three have slidden and you haven't seen your staff member for a month,
yeah.
and like other things that come in that are urgent and priority.
Mhm.
And of course, you've got loads of different pulls on your time. But for me, like nothing can be more important than actually making sure I spend time connecting with my team, because that's what keeps the whole team on track. Like, even if you don't care about anything else, it keeps the delivery on track, right?
Yeah,
But more than
absolutely.
that, it's the opportunity, like we said, for the connection, being able to creatively explore problems, trying to build like rapport and vulnerability with each other, and like showing that, courage and really empathizing with staff, knowing what's going on in their life so you can actually support them. So
Yeah, I think
yeah,
there is
for me,
there is. Oh, sorry. Carry
uh,
on.
so for me, I just think there's such a powerful tool in your leadership toolkit that like they deserve to be prioritized. You get so much out of prioritizing them. Why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah, absolutely. But there is definitely still that culture that they're kind of those non-essential meetings,
Yeah.
that they're like, back to, they're nice to have. You're just having a chat with someone. You're just having a, no, you're not. Like, these are not nice to haves. They're not, they shouldn't be flexible. They're certainly not dispensable. I think, as Brian and I have kind of said here at Lead the Room, for us as leaders and for you as leaders, a one-to-one with your members of staff is one of the most important and powerful tools that you have in your toolkit as a leader. So, and if you're thinking, I don't believe that, it's probably because you've never had a good one-to-one before,
Yeah.
as a member of staff. Um, because if you'd had a good one, you would see the value of them and understand how powerful they are, exactly as Bryony said, to do those things, to build that connection, to understand that purpose, to drive forward your delivery. It's all in that one-to-one meeting.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're a new leader who's just joined a team, like, and sometimes it can be really hard to like know how you fit in,
Mm.
like what are the team dynamics? Like, how do these people all connect to each other? Like, even though I'm here to lead the team, like what's my place, what's my role? And you can feel quite uncomfortable, or I can feel a bit uncomfortable by that, right? Like unsettled
Mm.
by not really knowing what my place is. But I've always found that really prioritizing one-to-ones as I come into a team and continuing to do so really helps me build that instant connection with people. You
Yeah.
get getting straight in there to understand like what are their motivations, sharing your own, like discussing values, discussing things that aspirations, all that kind of stuff. And it's a really good way, these one-to-ones, of building that instant connection.
Yeah, definitely. And even before you have that meeting, Bryony, right? Whatever is discussed in that meeting, by prioritizing that meeting, you are sending a message to to your
Yeah.
team to say, I care, I value you, you are my priority, not
Yeah.
some other shiny fancy meeting that I've been invited to that looks a bit more whatever. You are the priority, I value you, and that's all unspoken.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But let me tell you a bit of a story, Lindsay, about
Yeah.
where I've definitely gone wrong with this in the
Okay.
past.
Okay.
Because it's also not easy, right? Like this is all
No.
well and good, like when things are going well and you like each other and you like your staff member and there's nothing
Hard.
like difficult to bring up or whatever.
Hmm.
But actually, there's definitely times when I can think of one specific occasion where like I really needed to give this bit of constructive like feedback to this member of staff.
Hmm.
And I knew that no matter how I phrased it, like it wasn't going to go down well. It was going to create a conflict. that would take quite some time to unpick, would probably involve other people and impact on the team dynamic. And so I was just like, you know what? I can't face it this week. I'm going to cancel the one-to-one. Right. So I
Right.
cancel it.
Okay. Yeah.
Then next week, I'm like, right, got to give this feedback to this person. It comes to the moment, no, I can't do it. I'm cancelling it. And then as time goes on, like gets more and more orcs.
Yeah.
You've lost the
2
moment to give the
weeks.
feedback because it's like the thing that you needed to tell them like actually happened weeks ago. So they're like, why are you even bringing this up now? And it creates even like, it just stores up so many problems for you. And so I just, and then obviously because this problem is still persisting, I haven't given this person the feedback, they're still doing the thing that's unhelpful, it's impacting more on the team, and the team are like, Bryony, we thought, they're not saying this explicitly, but you can tell they're thinking it, like,
Yeah.
we thought you were someone who valued feedback, and yet you haven't come through on that commitment by giving this feedback to this person that we all know that they need. And so it's undermining your credibility and the
Yeah.
trust in the team by not doing it. And so when I look back on that, for me, that's what's going through my head. Like if I need to cancel a one-to-one, or if I need to reschedule or anything like that, that's what's going through my head now, because I'm like, don't get into that scenario again, Bryony. That was not a good look and you didn't enjoy it. Try to prevent that from happening again. So it's definitely an experience that I've learned from.
So what was that? What was the moment that you thought, I have to do this? Like, obviously, your team had noticed that you weren't kind of
Yeah.
sticking to kind of your promise, and and you knew I was damaging your credibility, your reputation. Like, at what moment did you think enough's enough? I've got to do this. And did you? I assume you did it.
Yeah, I did do it after about 4
Okay.
weeks, because I was just like,
Yeah.
well, but at what point am I gonna, like, I can't keep canceling the
Yeah.
one-to-ones. Like, that's not right, is it? So I was just like, I've got to just psych myself up. I'm going to just do it. I'm going to clear some time after the meeting because I know it's not going to go well, to decompress. And I just did it. But the thing is, with that person, I just feel like we never really recovered from that, because the trust was broken. Because if I'd gone to the person in the first place, and even though it would have been a difficult conversation and we would have had to work it through, we could have recovered from it because I would have handled it in the moment. But by just cancelling the one-to-one, then that person feels more and more unseen, unheard, like I don't value them. It hits up maybe against their values. And so you're just eroding trust on so many levels that we didn't really recover from it, is what I would say.
Yeah, that's a really powerful example, and one that I think we often think as well. It's the members of staff that don't want to come to the one to one,
Yeah.
but actually there are good reasons why. Yeah, why? So we speak about reasons why these one to ones are cancelled. Well, potentially because we don't want to front up and have those difficult
Yeah.
conversations, and actually it is easier to avoid it. So it's so easy to hit that cancel button, or worse, ask someone, could you cancel that meeting for me?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's tricky. It's interesting. I had almost like the opposite, in that
Mm-hmm.
I was like this person chasing this sort of member of my team to have a one-to-one. They were, and that sounds like a little bit weird, but they were the one who, on a weekly basis, would message me the morning of our team. The one-to-one was
Mm-hmm.
in the afternoon. They would message me in the morning and say, I have nothing for today's one-to-one. Shall we just cancel it?
Uh-huh.
Um, but they did this on a weekly basis. Now, if you were a leader that thought, "Do you know what, oh, actually, that's great. I could just get 30 minutes back in my calendars to do some work. They've got nothing to share. I never, ever believe someone when they say they have nothing to share.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because what have they been
So,
doing with their time?
yeah,
You know?
even if
Like,
they're thinking, oh, mate, I haven't quite done that piece of work that I said that I
yeah.
would do for Lindsay or whatever. Like, okay, don't necessarily you have to start on that, but there will be things in work and life that we can speak about, and
Yeah.
whether we don't have any kind of work updates or whatever, like things have been progressing, it's a non-eventful week, business as usual, then it's fine. But it's an opportunity for us to connect. So I don't care if we're meeting up that week to speak about your outputs, what you've delivered that week, or we're actually speaking about what you've watched on
Yeah.
Netflix that weekend. Like for me, it is an essential, whatever we're speaking about. And you will always, and some of the best one-to-ones that I've had are when people have said, oh, I've not got much this week. 15, 20 minutes into the conversation, turns out they had a lot to share. They didn't even know what they had to share.
And even if they haven't got a big update, it's just like such an opportunity for creativity together, isn't it? Like
Huge.
just stepping back and thinking like, how is this project going?
Yeah.
Or you sharing like, you know what? I'd love if you haven't got anything for me,
Yes.
can I share something with you? Like
Yeah.
I've been asked to do this thing. I'm not sure how to approach it. And then just brainstorming it together. And that, again, that builds so much creativity. It builds connection with your team member.
Yeah.
Like there's always, like you say, there's always something to be talking about.
Yeah. And that's what, so
Yeah.
the first time they did it, I thought, no, I'm going to be, you got, and like we said, you've got to be persistent with this stuff. If people give you an out, if they email you and say, I have nothing this week, it is easy. It's tempting to say,
Yeah.
okay, no worries. We'll catch up next week, Bryony. No, have that meeting. Whether that meeting lasts 10 minutes or half an hour, have that meeting, have that
Hmm.
one-to-one and be persistent. So it happened again. The first week they said, oh, nothing to share. But I said, no,
Yep.
come anyway. Let's have the meeting. Fine. Now it was awkward because they came. I knew going into that meeting, I would have to lead that and I would have to share.
Yeah.
So I was prepared for that because they said very, very little. And it was awkward. There were moments that you were like, oh, maybe I should have just cancelled. This would have been easier because they didn't want to share. And I thought, okay, no. And I maybe like called it after like 10, 15 minutes. And I was like, we're not doing any
Yeah.
more. The next week, they messaged and said, I haven't got anything to share this week. Shall we just cancel? No, we'll have it. And after I'd say about 6 weeks, the emails stopped.
Wow.
So it took about 6 weeks and they stopped messaging to say, and they came to that meeting, they came prepared, they came excited as much as they showed excitement in their
Yeah,
personality,
yeah.
but they came like engaged. They came with ideas. They came asking for my opinion on things, and they opened up so much about other things. And I just thought, if I hadn't persisted with that, if I hadn't continued to say, no, no, we're doing this, whether it takes 5 minutes, whether it takes half an hour, this is an essential meeting. And
Yeah.
we're gonna prove together that there's value in this for each of us. But I
But it's
think just that
such,
persistence.
yeah, but and it's also, it's such an act of courage, isn't it? Like, you know, one
Mm.
of the things we talk about under our courage skill is like that being out of the comfort zone. Because like you say, like it's massively orcs to
Oh
like be
yeah.
keeping having to say like, no, let's still meet anyway. When
Yes.
you're like, all that's inside you, all of your emotions are like, oh God, I can't sit there and
Yeah.
in another 15 minutes of like the most awkward with
Yeah.
this person again. But like you say, it's a demonstration of what you value and what matters to you as a leader.
Yeah.
And and it's amazing to see then and hear from you like what that did unlock eventually. So, but yeah, really real act of courage.
And
Yeah.
easy to give up. So you could have
Yeah.
probably after, I'd say if you said, oh, okay, give it a month. And if they're
Yeah.
still saying this, okay. But actually, why should they be kind of the member of the team that's almost like
Yeah.
let off the hook? Why shouldn't
Yeah.
they? Because for us, as we say at Lead the Room, these meetings are one of the most powerful tools that you have as a
Yeah.
leader. So don't like don't not you I mean use it. It's there to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
used,
Yeah.
and it's not, it can feel difficult, it can feel uncomfortable, but so much of this stuff can. But experiment with it. Experiment until it feels good. It feels like this is productive. This is great.
Yeah.
And they do when you're doing them right, which will help you through. They feel good, don't they, Bryony?
Yeah,
Or they can
exactly.
do.
And yeah, definitely. And I think that's really the first tip of the week, isn't it? Like
Mm,
the first thing is put them in the calendar, commit to
yeah,
doing them, and show up, right?
yeah.
And like that seems again like the basics.
Hmm.
But when you look at that stat that you shared at the beginning, like it's clearly not basic because so many people aren't doing it. So
Yeah,
make your commitment to your staff, to yourself as a leader, to your team, to the culture that you want to create today, that you're going to have these one-to-ones in the calendar every week or every fortnight, and show up for them and do them. Like if you have to reschedule, but don't cancel, you know?
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the first tip for this week.
And do you not think, but I also, that's another classic that I'd also received from people when I'd messaged my leader
Yeah.
and said, oh, have we got a one-to-one this week? Just because I can't see it in my calendar. And there's oh, it must have fallen out. It must have dropped. I'm
Where's it
sorry.
gone? I'm looking on the floor. Can't
Just
see it, Kate.
it's
Where
like
is it?
calendar series has dropped. Oh, it must have dropped out we'll pick it back up. Get it back in. That's a really, oh, it must have fallen out again. Like, oh, basically you fell out my calendar and I didn't even notice because you're not that much of a priority. I didn't notice you'd gone. Sorry,
Yeah,
Lindsay. Oh,
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Makes me feel great.
Yeah. So right, we've looked in the drawer. We found the
Yeah,
one-to-one
we found
in
it.
the calendar. I
What do you do
found
next,
it.
finally?
And what are we doing next, Lindsay?
So I think spending some time preparing for it, because these
Yeah,
things like don't just turn up and expect it just to happen. So we say prepared in terms of like think back, look at your notes from the last one, like what did you speak about in that last one. So firstly, like what did they share with you in terms of what they were working on? Are there specific questions you're going to ask, to demonstrate that you were listening, that there's accountability there, that you're going to ask about it again, you build connection, whatever it is, like make sure that you are remembering just a couple of things that you want to kind of ask them about. um because it really does demonstrate that you are actively listening to them and not just going through the motions of that one-to-one.
yeah,
Because often you can see people like, right, conveyor belt, who's next, right, what's your name, oh, Bryony, what project are you working on? Like, no, show interest, take note, make your notes. It's not too onerous. But it really shows that you are listening, you do care, and you do value their unique contribution to your team, and that's so important.
and it, like when we're saying prepare beforehand, is honestly like it's 5 minutes. You know,
Two,
like
three,
it's,
two, three
yeah,
minutes.
it's
Yeah,
not a lot, but just
yeah,
doing that makes the world of difference in the
yeah,
conversation that you'll have, the connection that you're able to build, and the
yeah,
purpose and clarity that you're able to talk about, like, you know, and the purpose and clarity that you're really able to talk about what that team member is accountable for in your one-to-one.
yeah.
So yeah, it's not,
I
it doesn't have
often
to
think,
be a lot.
I often think about it in my head as like three things. So if you could think about asking them or remembering kind of one thing that they were kind of their objective they were working on that
Yeah,
was going well, something that they were maybe struggling with, and something personal. So were they at a wedding at the weekend? Ask them how the wedding was. Like
yeah,
those like three things that takes 30 seconds to remember. So,
yeah,
like we're saying, we're speaking about a couple of minutes. You
yeah,
can
yeah,
do
yeah,
it on your walk to the meeting, wherever you are, making your cup of tea before the meeting. It's not an onerous task, but it
yeah,
has huge value. What about
exactly.
another tip, Bryony?
So the final one for this week is to follow up on the things that you say you'll do.
Yeah.
And this is really important for building trust, for building psychological safety, for building credibility as a leader. Like,
Mm,
you know, when they say that they're struggling with something, like it's a risk for them to share that. And when you say then, right, thank you for sharing that, like I'm going to do X or Y to help you,
mhm.
like make sure you do it, because if you don't, like that's going to destroy or risk destroying some of the connection and the trust that you've built up with your team member, that you've really taken a lot of effort to build up.
Yeah.
So you want that kind of, I call it like the say do gap, like you want that
Yes.
gap to be really quite small. So try and follow up the next day, or at least give them an update if you can't do the whole thing that you said you were going to do, but just make sure that you're following up on the commitments that you've made to them. Because again, it feeds back into that accountability discussion that we had last week, doesn't it? Of like, when you do that and you show I am accountable to you, it also makes them want to be accountable to you as the leader, right? Like it's a really important in terms of visibly demonstrating what matters to you.
Yeah. Because so often, that's such a good one, because so often that statement of, oh, tell me what I can do to help you, um, is an empty statement.
Oh yeah.
Like people roll it out, leaders roll it out time and time again. Tell me what I can do to help you. Okay, well you could do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Okay, oh let me see what I can do. Silence. Well, we never did see what you could do, like because I haven't heard from you because you've cancelled the next one-to-one, and I've fallen out your calendar, and yeah. So who knows what you could have done for me, but you haven't told me. So why on earth would I want to then go to my next one-to-one? So yeah, I
Yeah.
completely that I like that say do gap being as small as possible. and doing things kind of a bit more instant.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I'll take that away and think about it, or at
Yeah.
least go and acknowledge. And yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
look, those are 3 quick tips that you can all
Mm.
try out this week. But if you want to know more and like have a whole deep dive on this and know our step-by-step framework for building real connection with your team through these one-to-ones, then you can, if you rate and review the podcast, we will send you for free our 90-day leadership refresh guide. And in there is a whole guide on one-to-ones. We know that that's going to be really powerful for all of you who are thinking about how can I look forward to my one-to-ones each week? Like, how can I embrace them and how can I use the time really impactfully on building the kind of leadership culture that I want in my team? So rate and review the podcast, send us a copy of that to hello@leadtheroom.co.uk and we will send you that guide.
Cool. So, as always, we like to walk the week with you and share what we've been celebrating, what we're learning, and how we're growing into the next week. So, Bryony, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so mine sort of follows on from the learning last week, where I was saying, oh, I've just had too many meetings in my life and I need some like time to do my deep work and step back. And so this week I have managed to do that, which is that's a win. But I also like step back. It's the start of a new month. And so at the start of a new month, I always sit down and plan out my time and think about it in like a whole of life view. So not just like, what is it that I want to get done at work this month? How am I going to prioritize my time at work this month? But what else am I going to prioritize in my life that is going to build my resilience? Or what fun things have I got coming up this month? Like, have I got a weekend away or a fun event? Or who am I connecting with? Like, where am I making sure that I'm prioritizing, like seeing my friends or doing the hobbies and that kind of thing? And so I just always really love doing this because it gives me like so much more sense of like, I can be confident that I'm actually going to have a good shot at getting the things done that matter most for me and my team. But also, I'm doing it in a way that isn't selling myself out or burning myself out. Like, I'm doing it in a way that like is going to be make sure that I'm at home for tea time with the kids and being able to put them to bed like at 4 times out of 5 each week. So yeah, I always really love doing that. But
That's
what
huge.
about you?
I love that. So, this week I am actually celebrating a month back full time at work after
Oh
my
my gosh,
maternity leave, which
that's a
feels,
huge milestone.
yeah. And it seems, I don't know, in some ways it's felt really hard. Um, there was a moment I was crying in the shower one morning and I messaged Bryony and I was like, I don't know what I'm
Not in
doing.
the shower,
No, I
to be
did
clear.
text in the shower. We do a lot of bathroom voice notes, but yeah, we. I think just that I didn't. I think the first 2 weeks there was a bit of an adrenaline rush being back, like,
Yeah.
oh, this is exciting. I'm back. It's kind of the old me, and then the third week was like, oh, this is it. Like, I don't get to see my son every day.
Yeah.
Um, like
Yeah.
this is a lot. And some other person is getting to spend more time with them than me. And
Hmm.
that really hurt. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's contrasted with being surrounded, like being in meetings at work and filling in spreadsheets that you're like, no, no, this is not what the purpose. What is my purpose? Like, what is the
Yeah.
purpose of this? And I think I just had some low moments, but yeah, definitely celebrating. Like, we've hit a month. I can do this. Like, it's hard, but like we'll model through and find the joy in the moments that we do have together and the joy that actually work brings me into my life. So yeah, really important.
Yeah. Such a huge milestone, Lindsay. Like, well done, because it's a really big moment, isn't it? And like you say, the fact that your baby's spending more time with someone else other than you, like it's emotional time. So I'm
Yeah.
surprised you're not crying. Um,
Bring it
breathe
down.
deeply. So
What about
what about your learning for the week?
So I think my learning is actually definitely connected to that. So
Yeah.
I am definitely I'm an optimist. I definitely like, as my partner says, I chase butterflies. So
Yeah.
I'm always like, oh, everything's always quite good in my world. Um, I don't like mood hoovers. Anyone that sucks the mood out of me, walk
No.
on, move on. Not for me. But one of the things that I'm learning this week is absolutely about that kind of, I guess, that balance in my life. Now that I kind of thought I would just go back to work and like I'd come home and we'd have our family life and it would just be totally the same. No, no,
Yeah.
no. Like you need a whole different system. Like
Yeah.
your life changes, your routine changes, everything has changed. And I need a new system. So I'm trying to learn and experiment, I guess, with not just with me, but with my partner, with our family. Like who does what? Because the roles and responsibilities have changed.
Yeah.
We both
Yeah.
have full-time jobs, we're both parents, we both have hobbies, we both have commitments. Um, so the roles and responsibilities have changed. So I'm trying to learn and look at different examples of, it sounds a bit like, I guess, like official to be like, what's our system at home? But you need some kind of like way of working as a family to make it work so that we do have time for ourselves. We do have time as a couple, as a family, as
Yeah.
professionals, as crafters, as athletes, whatever you want to do, like just have that time. But that again, the optimist in me was like, oh, it'll just happen organically. No, it won't. The organic approach leads to a lot of friction and and arguments. So no, the organic approach, not for this.
Well, good for you on having that one-to-one with your partner to address the friction.
Yeah. Oh no, I didn't say I'd had it yet.
Oh, okay. Well, good luck.
What
um,
about you, Bryony? What are you learning about this
so
week?
I guess on a similar theme, like I've noticed over the last couple of weeks, that there's been like a bit of friction between the team, some of my team members, and it's really quite unusual for us as a team. Like normally, like
Mm,
everyone gets on really well and really supportive environment, just really fab team. And so, yeah, it's just felt really uncomfortable that there's been like this bit of friction. And so I
yeah.
guess my learning for the week is like, you've got to pay attention to these things because, and sweat that small stuff when it's showing up and deal with it,
Mm,
like nip it in the bud now, because otherwise it's going to escalate. And so I've just been like reprioritizing some things so that I can make sure that I've got more time in the one-to-ones, building on the conversation we had today, more time in the one-to-ones to really ask questions about what might be going on for them, really
mm,
taking time to prepare for those one-to-ones so I can formulate the right questions that I think will unlock the conversation so we can actually put what's going on the table and look at it in a way that doesn't people don't get defensive and we can actually find some solutions together. So yeah, I've just been thinking about how I kind of nip that in the bud so it doesn't become like escalate into something
yeah.
that's bigger. So
That's
yeah.
really, I think, again, in terms of leadership, like, a very courageous thing to do because it's very easy to be like, oh, it'll
Mm.
sort itself out, it'll be fine next week type thing. No.
No, no.
Um,
When has that ever really happened? Like,
no, but we like to think that. People
yeah,
like to
we
think, oh, it'll be
do.
fine.
Yeah,
Like
we
maybe they
do.
were just in a bad mood. That friction will go away. Like,
Yeah,
no, it doesn't.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
you've got to be intentional, take time, reflect on it, understand where the problem is. Yeah. But it
Exactly.
all takes time and investment, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um,
So have you got some time for growth? What are you thinking of experimenting with this week?
so I'm really proud of myself because one of my
Mm,
learning goals for the year was to learn more about AI. And so
okay.
this week, like I blocked out a whole hour to listen to this webinar. I listened to the webinar. I learned a lot. Job done. I've grown.
Amazing.
I've grown.
Yeah. All in 1 hour.
um, what about you, Lindsay? How have you grown this week?
I think that's a really good example, isn't it? Of like, sometimes we think of like growth and experimenting as something that's like, gosh, it's quite time consuming and it's like, it's going to
Yeah,
take
yeah,
like
yeah.
a lot. But actually, a podcast on your way to work or when you're out for a jog or whatever it is, like that for a week is big. And if you're doing that
Yeah,
consistently, which is what we're trying to promote, is it all adds up, doesn't it?
yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah. So I think interestingly this week, and again, I suppose related to all my three things, one of the things that I've noticed is, and I think probably a lot of parents, carers can kind of relate to this, is sometimes I feel like the only thing we speak about now as a couple is our child and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the system at home and how we're going to do that. And we've got quite different interests and hobbies, I'd say. And one of the things I've wanted to do is start to take an interest a bit more in my partner's kind of his interests and his hobbies, so that I can grow my knowledge around that, because I see his passion when he's speaking about some of these things. And I want to, maybe not share in the passion, but at least be able to kind of have a bit of a conversation about it. So to
Yeah.
ignite that passion and have a bit of a discussion on it. And because at the moment I almost don't feel like I know the right questions to ask about the subject,
Yeah.
because I don't know enough about it to ask a question, if that makes sense.
Completely understand.
So yeah, and I think it can go for any topic. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I am at the moment. So we'll see how the system, the friction conversation, the learning about his hobby. I mean, it could be. I'll report back.
Okay, send me a voice note from the shower.
I will.
So that wraps up this week's episode on one-to-ones with your team. And we hope that you've got some really practical advice and tips that you can put into practice this week. Like I said, if you want to know more, go to like I said, if you want to know more, rate and review the podcast, send us a screenshot to hello@leadtheroom.co.uk, and we will send you our 90-day leadership refresh, which is jam-packed not only with this one-to-one deep dive, but loads of other amazing stuff, all for free. So until next time, keep experimenting, and we can't wait to hear how you get on.
Fabulous. We'll see you next week. Take care.
A team full of purpose and results, people who are buzzing with ideas and the courage to try them out, and a place where you and the team can't wait for the weekly meeting. By listening to this episode, you are building your skills to become the leader that can make all this and more happen. But we want to hear from you. Tag us in your stories, send us a DM about your walk the week on Instagram so we can learn what's resonating with you most. And if you're up for helping us out and taking a moment to rate and review the podcast, send us a screenshot to hello@leadtheroom.co.uk so we can send you our 90-day leadership refresh as a thank you. Keep experimenting, and we can't wait to see you next week.